I'd like to pay our deepest respects to our veterans and mentioned them today. Special day for everybody in America, all our veterans and all that they've done for us, keeping this land free. And so many of them pay for it dearly throughout the years. So deepest respect there. We go to Maryland this week. Maryland's 6-3 football team had a big win over Penn State. Good football team. C.J. Brown has got Michigan State ties with his father, having played here in '83. Coach Perlis is a quarterback, so I'm sure he'll look forward to this football game. It'll be a blackout down there. Coach Etzel's a guy that we competed against when he was at Connecticut, when we were in the Big East, when I was at Cincinnati. So know him a little bit well. I think it's important that we respond. And from my perspective, things either get worse or they get better. They don't never stay the same. So it'll be important that as we move forward that we take the correct approach. So I'll take some questions as we go through it.
Mark, when you look back at Ohio State, when maybe you guys lost out on a BCS game or whatever, what do you draw from that when helping your team to go forward with obviously a loss of that expectation?
Well, I think that anytime you lose, there's going to be disappointment. That's any time. And so oftentimes, losses are, they hang on the inches. I mean, whether it's 5 plays or whether it's 5 or 6 or 7, I thought we were in the football game. Things didn't go as planned, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And, we got to just respond. I think that's part of this whole situation. So what do you tell your football team? Just exactly what I just said. It's going to get better or worse. That's their choice. That's our choice as individuals, how we handle success, how we handle failure. We've always responded. I think there's, we're not going to feel sorry for ourselves. We have to move forward, and that's the best way to do it, is to get back to practice today. So, I've been assured by our players that our mindset's correct, and we've got a lot to play for here. First of all, the season is not done yet, and you just don't know what can happen because there's a lot of parity in college football today. But even beyond that, we've got a lot to play for, and our hopes are to be a Power 6 football team. In terms of playing in one of those games.
Mark, your record is pretty good after disappointing losses moving forward. I don't know what it was at Cincinnati, but what is sort of something you've taken as a philosophy in those next weeks that's helped that over time, in terms of talking to your team, in terms of
you have to gain something from everything. You have to gain something from a loss. That's important that we do that. You have to understand, okay, these things didn't work, these things did. How did we respond? Who's your leaders? How did your leaders respond? How did I respond? Everybody involved in the process has to come away and gain something here. And as long as we gain something, we get stronger. And adversity is going to cause you to get stronger. I'm sure Ohio State, when they looked at last year's game, this refueled their fire a little bit, and made them, come here with a different mindset as well. So that's sports in general, I think, but that's probably everyday life too, as I said Saturday night. So we've got to gain from it, and that's what we'll take with us. We've got to grow.
Mark, I know we talked some about this Sunday night, but again, on the defensive effort, is there anything that needs to be reevaluated for the rest of the season on that side of the ball?
I think you're constantly evaluating everything that you do. You're on a game-to-game basis, play-to-play basis. We're going to play our best players. Guys are going to improve. Guys are going to make mistakes. They've got to learn from their mistakes. Every game's a different game. Every situation is a different situation. There are a lot of different things coming at you at a very fast speed, and you've got to react. And you've always got to be in a great reactionary position as a defensive player and tackle in space, play the ball in the deep part of the field, make tackles, affect the quarterback. And those 3 things we did not do. They led to big plays.
Going back
to run. I'm sorry.
That's right. Going back to when you came here, you've always used competition as a way to motivate players, whether it was Chris Norman or even RJ earlier this year. Will you open up and let Cronin compete with Geiger just for his own confidence, maybe to win that again, or is that something you've considered?
You have to look at things across the board, not just on game night. I think you look at things as practice occurs, and you ask yourself, okay, how's this guy kicking in practice as opposed to this guy, or whatever the case is. So, I mean, we see these guys every single day, and we assess them every day. The answer to your question is yes. The answer to your question is, do I think Michael Geiger is still our kicker? I do. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but we assess everything, and it's a competitive situation. But you first, before you get to the game, you need to prove it in drills. You need to prove it in practice as well. It's an easy one today, huh? Talking about the past.
Coach, does the mentality change now that you've kind of been knocked from the top of the hill? You guys clearly weren't the best team in the Big Ten. Does it change you from being the hunted to the hunter, or do you think that Maryland still does change the mindset at all in the locker room now that your kids have kind of had a dose of reality?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, the way you put it like that. But I still think that we would have the opportunity to be the best team in the Big Ten. I may not show in the records, but I still believe that we have that possibility. And I think that we'll go to Maryland and play. And the competitive nature of everybody is of that mindset. So we'll see what happens. That's why I opened up with what I said. You're going to find out a little bit more about yourself as we go further and further. That's why we evaluate the season at the end of the season, not at midway, not at the beginning. We evaluate it at the end. But you either get better or you get worse, and you need to learn from your experiences, and you need to respond. And it's very important that when things go poorly for us, that we do respond. That's very important to the structure and to the overall philosophy of this program. It goes beyond winning and losing. It speaks to the leadership from within, whether you're the head coach or whether you're the senior or a captain. It speaks to the leadership, and it speaks to the general dynamics that we talk about every single day, which is effort, toughness, knowledge.
With all those things you just mentioned, is it any easier to get that out of your players now that you've been here for 8 years and sort of established what you want to do as opposed to the beginning of your tenure, or is it always the same challenge?
I think it's always the same challenge, really, because I think that, every class or every football team is different, and every football team has its set of leaders, it has its set of guys that they're going to follow, they're all different because they're all growing in different ways. A freshman in 2008 as opposed to a senior in 2012, or 9 to 13 are different people. Just like our seniors in 2008 were different people, because they were here with us for 1 year, let's say. So I think it's every year it's different. That's why I think you have to continue coaching, not just the X and O's. You have to coach everything. You have to coach attitude. You have to coach leadership. You have to coach sacrifice. Everything.
Mark, we saw Delton in the first half Saturday, I think, for the first time in a couple of games. Is there an effort to get him involved a little earlier in the games?
Yeah, I think Delton has done a nice job the last 2 games. And I've said all along, every time I talk about Jeremy Langford, I make sure I talk about Nick Hill, who's been solid, and Delton, who is a very good running back as well. So we've got depth at that position. They're good players, but Langford was hot too. So, when he was hot, we were giving him the ball, and I think he responded.
Mark, there have been lots of stories about perception and whether the program's arrived. When a program is 7-2 and it feels like disappointment, is that when you've arrived?
Well, I don't ever want to start the season saying I hope we're 7-2. I want to start the season, or always talk about after 9 games we want to be 9-0. So I guess that's how I'd answer it. I don't know if you ever arrive. I truly don't know if you ever arrive. We're 7-1 last week at this time, and I didn't feel like we had arrived. We're still pushing. But I knew that we had a great opportunity, and that we let that opportunity slip by us. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have another great opportunity this year. It just means that opportunity went by us, and that we've got to create another one for ourselves.
When some of us were asking your players the other night about, the season being lost, they kind of rolled their eyes. Isn't that kind of the mentality of players and coaches, that they're kind of all championship games?
Yeah, I think every game's very important, and you go into every one of them thinking that something positive is going to come out of it if you win. That's why throughout this year I've said, hey, all we got to do is worry about winning the next game. Things happen good for you if you win the next game. Just look at what's going on down the road in Columbus now. They won the next game. Things are going very well for them all of a sudden, which 5 weeks ago, not so good. So things change. And I think that's the reality of college football. Things are going to change. And they've changed for a lot of people this past week. There are a lot of people sitting around, wondering, okay, now what do we do next? But that's competition at the highest level, and that's what you look for, and that's what you compete against. So I don't think there's anything wrong with doing your best and coming out. You might not like the way you come out, but if you do your best, I think you can handle it. So, and I hate to keep going back to Saturday night's game, but, even yesterday morning, I put the film back on and looked at it differently in a different alignment of things, just to answer to myself, were we playing hard? Were we competing? Did we quit? And the answer is no, we kept playing. And we were playing hard through the very end. And that's what you ask your players to do. And they did that. So that doesn't mean ultimately you're going to lose or win, but they did that. And that's the first question you have to ask yourself. Did we shut it down? Quit believing in ourselves? And I don't think we did that. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign for the future.
Mark, when I asked about Darian Hicks, seemed like they went at him a lot the other night, probably a tough game for him, but
Yeah.
But he sat here after for 15 minutes, whatever, answered every question. Is this the kind of game, even though it didn't go well for him, that a young player kind of needs to go through to grow and just kind of
Yeah,
experience all that?
absolutely. I make the comparison to him, and I look at Trey Waynes, who's a very successful corner right now. Well, Trey never started a game for us until the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl at the end of his redshirt freshman year. So he played for 2 years, and in his last game he played. And Darian's a true sophomore, and he's played some last year, a little bit, in and out, and then he started now for, 9 games. So, yeah, he had a difficult game. But if he makes a decision that he grows from that, he will grow. He'll be more competitive as he moves forward. And that's what that's what he'll do. He's a tough guy. He'll survive it.
Going back farther in the past to the 2011 Capital One Bowl when you played Alabama, the emotion was pretty much the same after that game, and I'm curious, do you go back and remind them, look what happened since that game, we got to keep forward thought process, or is it youth are resilient, you don't need to?
No, I didn't point to that game because we had a total meltdown on both sides of the ball in that game. This was not the same type of game. This was a game that without one call, it's 28-14 with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left in the half. And you really don't know what's going to happen beyond that if we're kicking off. Do they hit the 79-yarder? Do they not? What's going to happen? Does he throw an interception? You just don't know. You miss a field goal, next play's going the other way, as we've talked about now, I think 3 times. It's the 3rd time. So, I'm talking about things change, but we were in the football game. It's 28-24 late in the 3rd quarter. We have an 8-minute drive, have to kick a field goal. They go up by 11. We drive it down again, go 4th and 5. So it was not that type of game in 2011. The feeling, when you have big high hopes, when you have aspirations, there's going to be big disappointment. When you've reached and climbed a mountain and you can't climb that next mountain, there's going to be bigger disappointments. The higher you go, the bigger disappointment I think that there's going to be. If we set our sights low, the disappointment level will be low. So we got ourselves up the ladder. Hey, we didn't make it. Deal with it, be a man about it, and move on. And that's what we have to be able to do. And I'm speaking for not just our players, but for myself and everybody in our program. That's just what you got to do. We've been there before, been extremely disappointed in games. But that's going to happen if you take risk and put yourself in these situations and do this for a living, or do this at this level, or do this at any level. There's going to be disappointment. You know, half the teams on last Saturday, half of them lost. So a lot of people were disappointed.
Is that unusual for you to go back and look at film on a Monday from the last game?
Yeah, it is.
How many times have you done that?
I can't, probably when I've been bothered. So,
And also,
you know, I usually do that on big games, to be honest with you. I mean, games that, you know, have a, you know, I did that with the championship game when we lost to Wisconsin. You know, so there's always been big disappointments. I've talked about, you know, when I was at Ohio State and we're 10-1, going to go play Michigan. If we win, we're in the national championship game again for the second straight year. We don't. We lose. It's 28-0 at half. We're losing. You know, I watched that game a bunch too.
also, I guess you can't say that you've won at every Big Ten stadium for at least the next 2 years again, but where does that rank, and then trying to accomplish that, you know, and get another one here this weekend?
Yeah, that would be something, you know, that we would want to try and do. This is this is the first time down there, so, you know, there's change. There's a little bit of, okay, what's the environment like? I'm sure it'll be very exciting. I would expect there'd be a lot of Spartan fans there from the East Coast. I would think there's a lot of people that are going to make that drive to Maryland, from whether you're from New York or wherever, but we'll see. So it'll be an exciting atmosphere, I know that.
Coach, you mentioned I think you used the term Power Six, but I think you were talking about like the college football playoff bowls.
Yeah.
There are 6 of them now, including the 2 semifinals. That's kind of the new BCS standard, I guess. Is that kind of the goal, to make that the Michigan State standard, to become, like you played Stanford that had been to 4 BCS bowls in a row last year, to reach that level where you're in that championship series bowls each year? Is that kind of part of what you'll put out there for your team?
I think the goal remains to win a championship in the Big Ten Conference, a division championship, Power 6 team, or however they classify this, you know, but New Year's Day bowls, you know, those type of things. You know, that's the standard, I think, we're trying to set, to always be a football team that's in the conversation. And I think we've been in the conversation now for 9 weeks, 10 weeks. But, you know, so I don't want anybody to feel bad for us. We're still in the top 20. So just win, baby. And we're all right. Okay.
Mark, I don't know if you want to go here, but what did the film show you on the holding call line, Jack? I didn't see it, so.
I don't think, I'm not qualified to speak on that. Okay? That's what my wife would say. Okay? So.
Mark, I know you recruited C.J. Brown a little bit. What makes him so good, and how different are they without Diggs?
You know, I think C.J. is an exciting player. He's got the ability to run the football. He can create. I think that's what makes him a very good quarterback. There's going to be certain things that they just rely on him to do from a running standpoint, obviously throwing, but I think it's when he creates that he becomes most difficult to defend, like most quarterbacks. It's when they take a bad play and create a good one from it, and I think he has the ability to do that. It remains to be seen what they are without Stephon Diggs, but I do think that Leaks, very good player, long. Number 6 has become a go-to guy for them. Their corner, number 4, is likely to have a decent game usually. And, he's got big returns, big interception returns, big punt returns, so he's a guy that's been a playmaker for them on the defensive side of the ball and on special teams. So it'll be an interesting football game, and it'll be the first time that we're competing against them, so it'll be a challenge for us.